Good morning, guys. How are we all doing? It's May Day. Yay! Well, it's May Day now. Depends when you're watching this. Yes, bell time for those who are... Oh, I don't know if something weird's just happened. Oh, yeah, I'm still live. So, yes, how are we all doing this morning? It's May Day. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes because I've done these webinars before and people don't realise that they have to register on this platform as well. So it can take people a bit longer just to come through. So I'll give it another couple of seconds. I must apologise. I've woken up this morning with a dreadful cold. No idea why. I don't know where you guys are based. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat if you want to. Just let me check that I've turned the chat on. Public chat should be enabled. So yeah, feel free to introduce yourselves if you want to. There's absolutely no obligation to or not. This is a webinar, so it means I can't see you guys. So the only way I've got to know if you're still here is if you comment and engage. So it's entirely up to you. I will just chat to myself all day, so it makes no difference to me if you do put in the chat, but I do respond better when people are asking questions and things. So do feel free to introduce yourself and pop things in the chat. So yes, wherever you are here in the UK, it's 9 o'clock, just slightly gone. As you can maybe tell from the sunlight streaming through the window, it promises to be a beautiful May Day today. So I hope you're all having a lovely weekend, whatever you have planned. Yes, I suspect the sunshine might be tempting a few people who've registered out into the sunshine, which is fine. Everybody gets a replay link. So if you're watching this on replay, I hope you've had a fantastic Saturday. So 2 minutes past. Yeah, we'll make it start. So hi, welcome to those who are joining me live. Welcome to those who are watching me on replay. Today's webinar is all about managing your endometriosis pain without popping pills. Quite often, and I have been there myself, you get so frustrated and so fed up of the pain that comes with endometriosis that you just want to make it stop. And the easiest way we have of doing that is for reaching for painkillers. Now, when I was in the throes of my endometriosis flare-ups, actually painkillers didn't really do too much for me, and I had to take super strength painkillers even just to touch any of the pain that I was experiencing. And I know for a lot of my clients, that's exactly the same. So whatever painkillers you take, if you're wanting to reduce them or stop them, then this webinar hopefully will give you some handy hints and tips in terms of ways to do that effectively and safely. A couple of things to mention first. I should really introduce myself. So those of you who don't know me, there are some names that I haven't recognised. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah. I am a health coach and therapist, and I specialise in helping people with endometriosis. I shall go through a little bit about my journey into this later in the webinar. Yes, I offer one-to-one coaching and treatment packages to help people really get to the root cause of their endometriosis. For those people who've seen some of my other webinars, you'll understand what I mean when I say root cause. I have my own beliefs about endometriosis that I have formed over the last few years. But again, I'll talk more about that in a bit. So for today, let me just bring up today's agenda. It's not the agenda. There. So what to expect from today's webinar. I'll just put that on so you can see that properly. So yes, I'll do a little bit of an introduction in terms of myself, and my endometriosis. We will talk through what pain is when you have endometriosis. There are some recognised pain areas with endo, and then there are some pains that quite often people don't associate with endometriosis, but it's very, very common. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking through why we get the pain with endometriosis. And then we'll probably have a break at that point, and then we'll start part 2 by talking all about how to manage everything, all these pains, without taking painkillers all of the time. That's not to say you may never need to take them again, but that's just more to say that it will reduce your reliance on painkillers. And if you don't want to take them again, you don't have to. I very, 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 very rarely take painkillers these days. So yes, if you are again, in the chat, let me know what stage of your endometriosis you're at, and whether you have a diagnosis, whether you're expected endometriosis. I had some people on the last webinar that were listening in for other people as well. So if you are concerned about your daughter or a relative, then again, feel free to ask questions. I do offer a free consultation as well if you want to jump on a free call with me to talk through your specific situation as well. And I will put a link up there, either at the break time, or if I forget, I'll pop it up at the end. And I think you get a follow-up email. I can't remember if it's got a link in, but it has my email address, so feel free to respond. So yes, if you are under the care of a specialist or your GP, and you are wanting some extra support and extra advice in terms of what I'm talking about today, do consult your specialists as well. This isn't something, and we'll go into the how to do it in part 2, but this isn't something just to do on a whim. As with everything I do with endometriosis, the best way to attack this is from a planned point of view, a strategic point of view, if you will. So yes, if you have a GP or a specialist, feel free to chat through everything I'm saying with them as well and get their additional advice and support on this. Conversely, if you want some additional advice and support on what your specialist or GP are saying, then that's what people like me are here for. So let's jump straight in, because we've got quite a lot to get through. So very, very briefly then, me and my endometriosis. So I put there a love-hate relationship. It took me a long time to get diagnosed with endometriosis, as it does for most people. I first had symptoms. I mean, I started my periods at 12, and I first had symptoms probably then, but you don't realise what isn't. I'm not going to say normal, because quite often people say it is normal, but in terms of a healthy cycle, you don't necessarily understand at that age what a healthy cycle looks like. So I put down my heavy periods and the pain I was experiencing as normal and healthy for a cycle. And then I only really realised at 18 that something was wrong. And that's when I started going to the doctor, and I had the humiliation, again shared by so many other people, of sort of assumptions that it was maybe an STI, an STD, that it was all in my head, all the other awful things that happened to many, many, many of us, way too many than it should. I was sent to see a gynecological specialist. I was sent to see bowel specialists, because I had symptoms with my bowels as well. And I was sent to see psychologists, all of whom kind of eventually came to the conclusion that it was endometriosis. So I was put on the contraceptive pill, tried a few of them, none of them worked for me. So I had a few months off, and then they put me on the Zoladex implant. Zoladex is a trade name, and that's just one of the abdominal implants that they use here in the UK. They're still used now, even that diagnosis and that treatment was 20 years ago. It's still in use now. That worked for a short while, but then the symptoms started coming back, and they actually started coming back worse than they were previous to when I'd had the Zoladex implant. So I was then told that if things got worse, I was told that I probably wouldn't be able to have children as part of my endometriosis, and that if things got worse, then the next treatment step for me would be a hysterectomy. Now, I was only 24, so I wasn't really ready to give up. I didn't particularly want children, but I also didn't want to say that I'd never wanted to have children. So I was lucky enough that I had somebody in my life at that point. I'd grown up with alternative medicines anyway. My dad's cousin was a homeopath, and I had somebody in my life that I stumbled across at that point who was very supportive in terms of looking for alternative methods and alternative ways to what I was being told by my doctors. So I started off with Reiki. I started down the Reiki path, and then started doing lots of other different therapies over the years. Bizarrely, and the reason why I say it's a love-hate relationship is because without endometriosis, I would never probably have tried Reiki, and without Reiki, I wouldn't have treated myself for many years, and without all of that, I wouldn't actually have the business that I have now. So I had a 9-to-5 career in local government, social care and health, and I did that for many, many years. but I now do this full time and I absolutely love it. And I provide support to people who are in the same situation that I was many, many years ago, who are struggling with the symptoms of endometriosis, want to understand their endometriosis a bit better, and want to live without the constraints that endometriosis brings. And without my endometriosis, I wouldn't be doing that. So it's very much a love-hate relationship. It's part of me. It's part of my journey, and it's become my life as I've managed my own endometriosis and taken on all those therapies and techniques over the years. So yes, it's very much a love-hate relationship, my relationship with endometriosis. So I've just put there, again, I'll just put that there. So these are the symptoms that I was getting. So in the early days, a lot of pain, a lot of heavy bleeding and blood clotting, massive bloating, intense fatigue, not just around menstruation, but at various points of the cycle. At one point, my ovulation fatigue and pain and bloating was actually worse than menstruation. I got joint pain, hips and knees. I haven't put there, but I got massive muscle pains, again, down my legs, predominantly on the inside of my thighs. Bad skin, so my skin used to go really, really dry. Eyes, I used to get dark circles. I've pressed something here, trying to get it back. There we go. I used to get really dry skin under my eyes, and on the side of my eyes here, I used to get dark circles, which I still get every now and again under my eyes. Again, bloating, the IBS type symptoms as well. And then have I put anything else? Oh yes, so infertility. I was told that I probably wouldn't be able to have children. But just as an aside to that, if you've been told the same, don't necessarily take that as gospel, because there's a whole host of stories, but there are ways that you can overcome that with natural methods. I won't go into that because it's a really long story, but yeah, don't. I was told at 24 that I probably couldn't have children. Now at 40, I'm nearly 44, and we're just going through a cycle of IVF, about to go through a cycle of IVF with a good prognosis. So don't necessarily think that that is the only prognosis that you're going to be given. Okay, so that's completely aside. Let me just bring us back to, so that's me, that's my journey with endometriosis. So I have had endometriosis probably for as long as I've been on this earthly plane. But I was diagnosed 20 years ago, and since those 20 years, I've managed my own symptoms. I've got to the root cause of my endometriosis. So again, I won't go into all of that, but check out my other videos if you want to know my theories and beliefs on root causes of endometriosis. And I've done that for 20 years, and I've helped other people overcome endometriosis as well. So that is my background with endo. So we are going to talk through, let me just bring up the agenda again. We are going to talk through the pain that we have with endometriosis. So we're going to start off with where the endometriosis pain that we experience is. So we've got the obvious pain that we have with endometriosis, which is all of the abdomen, particularly around the ovaries and the bowel. So within that abdomen, we experience a lot of pain. Now, Chinese medicine tells us that pain comes from stagnation, comes from where the flow of energy is blocked. So if you have endometriosis, everything is happening in this pelvic region. So everything within your pelvis, that's where we're getting the stagnation. That's where we're getting the clotting, the bloating, the pain, all the toxic buildup, all the nasty irkiness. That's all going on in our abdomen. So that's predominantly where we feel the pain, and that's the most recognized place where people get endometriosis pain, because obviously it's impacted on the abdomen first and foremost. However, we then see the other pain that we get, and I've just listed a few of the most common ones that I see, but some of these I've experienced, and these are the most common ones that I see with my clients as well. So a lot of the time I see hip pain and lower back pain is really, really common, and neck and shoulder pain is really, really common as well. Now, I should point out at this point as well that some of these pains are linked to the root cause, some of these pains are symptoms, and some of them are both. So some of these pains, like lower back is a prime and a very easy example of this. Some people's endometriosis is caused by a physical trauma to the lower back, just putting everything slightly out of kilter. So people may have had lower back pain before they realised they had endometriosis, if it's part of the root cause of the endo. Then when you get into your endometriosis, when it starts to really flare up, you can then have lower back pain as a symptom of your endometriosis as well. So it could be that your back pain gets worse as your endometriosis flares up, or it could even be that it disappears for a while and then just flares up again with the endometriosis flare up. Or you could have lower back pain all the time if your root cause is still there. So if you still have that old back injury that's still there, then you might actually have lower back pain all the time. So a lot of these things can be symptomatic, but they can also be causal as well, or linked to the cause. So I've also seen a number of clients that get painful jaws, so also gums and teeth. And even last week I was chatting to a lady whose gums and teeth bleed. So if you're brushing your teeth and your gums and teeth bleed, have a tendency to bleed, then I'll talk about tracking later on, but track that because that might be linked to your endometriosis as well. Okay, so we also have pain in legs, muscles everywhere. So again, a lot of fatigue, maybe in that upper back, neck tension, throat tension. Again, that's really, really common with people. Yeah, legs are most prominent, and also restless legs as well. But we are talking predominantly about pain today, I know, but a lot of people experience restless legs with that pain as well. Muscular pain all over the body. And also joint pain. It's not just in the muscles, but people can feel it in their bones and feel it in their joints as well. So they are all common pains that I come across, that I've experienced either myself or that I come across with my clients. So it's not just that pain in the abdomen that we have to put up with endometriosis. The pain is widespread. And again, don't feel as if things aren't connected, because it's really, really surprising how common pain is that feels completely unconnected, like neck pain, for example, or like the pain in the jaw and the gums and the teeth. That's really, really common, and quite often people push it aside as something else and don't actually think of it as being linked to their endometriosis, but actually in a lot of cases it is. And we start to see, as the endometriosis starts to clear, as we reduce the cysts and the lesions that are going on in the abdomen, we quite often see that these pain levels elsewhere and the symptoms elsewhere are reducing. So don't write anything off, track everything. I do actually have a free pain tracker that I've developed, that I'll give you a link to in the break, so you can download, and I'll do it later on as well, so you can download that. So you can just keep track of all the pains that you're having, where, and things that seem to trigger or help it. Okay, so that's where the pain is. So if you have, again, if this resonates, then pop it in the chat. If you get pains elsewhere on a regular basis and you're wondering if that is linked to your endometriosis, then again, put it in the chat. I should say as well, if you're watching on replay, I don't think you can see the chat on replay, but there should be a box where you can put your own questions in. So if you do want to ask a question, pop a question in the chat box and it actually gets emailed to me, so I'll be able to respond. Again, it won't be in the chat, but I will be able to respond on email. Okay, so that's the where. So when do we get endometriosis pain? So again, it's most common that people assume that the bulk of your pain with endometriosis comes when you're bleeding or just before you're bleeding. So maybe a day or two in the run up to your period, that's when most people think that you get endometriosis pain. Most people with endometriosis know that that isn't necessarily the case, and you can get that endometriosis pain at any time in your cycle. But most commonly experienced, most commonly recognised, is that pain that comes with menstruation. So I've put the most common ones at the top. Don't know if you can see that again. So I've put the most common ones at the top, and then some of the other ones underneath that. So I've also put their mid-cycle ovulation pain is very, very common with people with endometriosis, often just as common as the menstruation pain. So pain during sexual intercourse and after sexual intercourse as well. So you get a lot of people who kind of experience pain during, but then that pain can last for a couple of days afterwards as well. So that is really, really common. And I've put toileting, which makes us all sound like toddlers, so apologies for that. I didn't really mean it in that context. But just, so when we go to the toilet, we can experience pain as well. So that can be pain from the bowels or pain from the bladder, again, depending on what stage of endometriosis you have, where your endometriosis is, and the time of the month, your hormone levels, all sorts of different things impacting. But you can experience pain very, very commonly when you go to the toilet as well. So the other whens, so I've mentioned mid-cycle, so pain at any time in the cycle is incredibly common with endometriosis. It doesn't just have to be at menstruation or even ovulation, it can be at any time in the cycle. So some people get pain after extreme exercise. So if you're somebody who enjoys the high intensity training, sort of gym classes or running, then quite often it can make you feel better, but it actually can cause a little bit of pain as well. I know, for example, when I'm having a flare up, that if I go to the gym and I do things like lifting heavy medicine balls or lots of crunches, that I will start to ache. So again, it's just important to recognize when you get your endometriosis pain. Don't compare it to other people's. I know it's so difficult, but just get to understand your body and get to understand your pain. So bending and stretching, so a similar concept really. If you're, especially people, I had a client before lockdown, I had a face-to-face client who, I'm just going to have a quick drink of water, apologies. Yes, I had a face-to-face client who worked in a warehouse, and obviously there's a lot of bending and lifting, and that sort of job, that sort of activity, not for everybody, but can really exacerbate endometriosis as well. Again, not for everybody. So if you're listening to this thinking, well, I don't have any of this, that's fine. That's your normal. I'm just talking through the most common things that I see. I haven't experienced a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, but it's common to my clients. So if you're watching this thinking, well, that's not really ringing true, that's not really resonating with me, don't worry. If you want to talk about your symptoms, just give me a shout. Okay, so time of day as well. So some people that I have worked with have incredibly bad pains first thing on the morning. Some people have incredibly bad pains last thing of an evening. Again, there's no hard and fast rule. Some people it doesn't change during the day. Sometimes it's absolutely nothing to do with time of day and it's completely random. I put random at the bottom there. I don't know if you can see the cursor actually, but I put random at the bottom there because for some people that is random. But it is common that some people find it worse in the morning. That's specifically sometimes not specifically sometimes, but that tends to be people for whom movement helps their pain. So during the night, they're not moving very much. They're lying there quite still, which can sort of cause issues when they start to move first thing on the morning, which could be why they're getting that pain first thing on the morning. There's also other things that I look at in terms of the Chinese medicine clock. So Chinese medicine divides the day into 2-hour sections, and those 2-hour sections correspond to different meridians and different organs. So we also look at that as well to see if there's anything underlying that we can help in terms of addressing root causes and things. But that's very common. And again, at the end of the day, that can be if movement is impacting on people in a negative way. So the more you move, the more it hurts. And the Chinese clock as well. So there's different variations of these. But it's quite interesting when you start to track your pain just to see if these do resonate with you. So injury, illness, and post-op. So again, this could be just sort of generally speaking, but quite often people, I've done it again, quite often people only notice their endometriosis pain after something like a C-section operation. And that's because, as we know, endometriosis loves scar tissue. So if you have an injury, a lower back injury, an abdominal injury, if you've had bowel illness, so if you've had something, well, I say illness, it could be any illness, because if you've started to take antibiotics, I had a complete mind blank there, but if you started to take antibiotics, that can sometimes trigger the endometriosis, which can impact on the pain. But again, if you've had a localized injury in the abdomen and it's healing, then the endometriosis can flare up there as well. And again, post-operative. So if you're healing, if you've got scar tissue forming, and if you're healing, then that can sometimes trigger the endometriosis, which is triggering the pain as well. So you've got the pain from the injury and the illness, the post-op to start with. impacted by the endometriosis. And then again, just to hit on the random thing. So yes, your pain also can be completely random. Now, this is an unusual one because quite often I will speak to clients and ask them about their pain and any patterns in their pain. And they'll say, oh no, it's completely random. There's nothing really that triggers it. There's no real pattern to it. But then once we start tracking everything, we start to see that actually there are patterns. It's just patterns that you wouldn't necessarily even consider right at the start. So it may seem random, but it might end up not to be random, which is one of the things I love about helping people with endometriosis. It's kind of like a big puzzle, and I always liken it to an onion and unpeeling all the different layers of the onion, but it's also like a Rubik's Cube. It's so complex, but when you start to move all the right pieces in the right way, it all starts to come together. And pain is one of these really important things that can really shed a lot of light on your endometriosis, on your individual endometriosis, because it lets us see specific times, specific triggers for your pain, indicating that you're having a bit of a flare up at that point. So this is a really, really important part of the endometriosis jigsaw. So then we move on to what? So why on earth do we get so much pain with endometriosis? There's so many other conditions out there that don't cause half as much pain as endometriosis does. So what is it that's actually causing the pain? So for those of you who have been to my other webinars, especially my point of view webinar, when I talk everything you need to know about endometriosis, it's a full webinar in itself, so I won't go into it, but Chinese medicine, I've sort of touched on it already. Chinese medicine tells us that endometriosis, not just Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine, tells us that endometriosis is a perfect example of an illness, a dis-ease of stagnation. And that can happen because of numerous things. It can be physical or emotional trauma, either an acute trauma, but a big trauma, or prolonged trauma over a long period of time. So when we're actually getting the pain, so basically endometriosis takes a long time to build up. So it can, like I say, it can be an acute thing, but most of my experience with endometriosis is that it's happening over time, at least initially anyway. So the pain that we're getting is from the endometriosis itself. So if you can imagine, the endometriosis is basically endometrial-like tissue. So it's tissue that's very, very similar to what should be in, or what is inside the womb, but it's growing outside of that uterus. But it tries to act the same as the tissue within the womb. So it tries to swell, it tries to shed along with your menstrual cycle. There are other ways as well, but this is one of them. So the endometriosis itself, in doing so, will be swelling in parts of the body that's not really designed for the endometriosis or the endometrium to be in. So it's not designed for that, for those cells to be expanding and shedding. So that in itself is causing pain. And all the other stuff, all the other symptoms. But today we're just talking about pain. I have to keep reminding myself just about pain today. So then we have the scar tissue as well. So endometriosis itself can cause scar tissue wherever it is. So especially if you've had any surgeries to remove the endometriosis, then you will have the additional complexities of having scar tissue there as well. So that can add an element of pain, the same as any other scar. Even if you've got like a cut on your finger, when you bend your finger, that cut tries to open a little bit and it causes pain even after the event of the injury. So that's exactly what's going on within your abdomen if you have scar tissue as a result of your endometriosis or post-op. And the endometriosis is attaching itself to the scar tissue. So as you're moving your finger, not your finger, but as you're moving your abdomen, you're opening that cut in effect and breaking open that scar tissue, which is why we get a lot of those really intense burning pains, because that's what's going on with the scar tissue. And cysts and masses, I should say, because it isn't just cysts with endometriosis. We get masses of endometrial tissue as well, endometrial-like tissue in the abdomen as well. So if you've got, it's not uncommon for me to be supporting people with cysts or masses that are many, many centimetres in diameter. So if you've got something that's sitting there in your abdomen that shouldn't be there, then that is going to cause you pain as well. The amount of pain that people feel, they may not feel any pain at all, and then all of a sudden something just sears through their abdomen. And that could be if they're, again, bending or twisting, running. It happens quite a lot when people are running. And that could be either a cyst or from a mass that's just either pressing, or quite often it can be from a cyst bursting as well. Because normally, I mean, cysts appear naturally in our cycle. It's quite a common thing for a woman to basically not ovulate 1 month, and then the follicle then naturally turns into a cyst. And most of the time that cyst clears itself, but sometimes, especially with people like with endometriosis, polycystic ovaries and things, that cyst can sort of hang around a little bit. So that's what that pain can be as well. So yeah, we also get muscle tension, and again, this can be either because the pain is causing us so much tension, causing us stress. Now, it's important here to talk about, I was going to talk about this a bit later, but it's important to talk about why we get pain. There's a couple of slides in a bit that go into a little bit more detail about this, but basically pain is a natural response. We need pain response because it keeps us safe. It alerts our body to a threat, to an immediate threat. It tells our brain that we are in danger, that there is something that's hurting us. And so our body, our mind, when I say body in this instance, I mean our physical and our emotional, our mental body and being, I suppose, responds in a way to get us, to remove us out of that situation. So if we're dealing with all of this pain, our muscles start to want to get us out of it. So our muscles naturally tense up. Muscle tension is a natural response to our mind getting that message of pain. So we can be experiencing muscle tension that isn't directly related to the endometriosis, but it's just as a pain response. But we can also get muscle tension if you've got endometriosis on your muscles or your tendons, and even on your fascia, on your soft tissue. That can cause that muscle tension as well, because you've actually got the pain of the endometriosis or the scar tissue being on the actual physical muscle. Dehydration, a lot of the clients I speak to, or a lot of my clients and a lot of people I speak to are mostly dehydrated, and it's very, very, very easy in this day and age to be dehydrated. We don't drink anywhere near the water that we should be drinking during the day. So a simple, everybody says, oh, I should be drinking X amount of litres a day. This really, really varies, especially when you have a chronic condition, because when you're dealing with pain, when your muscles are constantly in pain or tense because you're dealing with pain, when you're constantly getting those signals from your muscles to your brains, back to your muscles, so everything is constantly working that much harder. So actually, when you have a chronic condition, and especially with endometriosis, because we bleed so much more as well, so we're losing moisture, we're losing that hydration from our shedding as well, from our menstruation. So and even just in terms of cyst production, there's so much going on. Again, I have to stick to pain today, but there's so much going on that when we're dehydrated, dehydration causes pain as well. So again, the runners, the sports people amongst you will know that your muscles perform so much better when they're hydrated. And when they're dehydrated, that's when you start to get the muscle cramps and the pains in the muscles. And when you're recovering as well, your recovery time is longer, and the muscle pain is exacerbated if you're dehydrated. So rather than thinking about how many litres of water you should drink, concentrate on your wee. So when you're weeing, apart from the first wee of the day, which will always be darker than the rest, when you're weeing, your wee should be a really, really pale yellow. We're aiming for kind of weak lemon drink colouring of your wee. So if it's anything stronger than that, if there's any odour involved, then you're dehydrated, and you need to look at upping your water level. And I always talk about, I mean, you read so many things on Google or wherever about our tea and coffee. Is herbal tea included? Is squash included in hydration? So many people say yes, it is. For my clients, when my clients are working with me, I tend to say water, just drink water. And when you're drinking water, just drink filtered water. And again, there's so many reasons for that. We're not talking about that today. So if you are dehydrated, just stick to water, sip water during the day, and that will naturally help we'll go on to how to hydrate yourself, how to get rid of your pain naturally, but hydration is the first place to start. And for many people that I know, so I do see people with other chronic conditions as well, and for a lot of people, their symptoms start to clear just by being hydrated, which is an incredible, our bodies are incredible. I always start with my clients, your body has the ability to heal itself. And that is my belief. That is the belief that we as alternative and complementary medicine practitioners have, that the body, given the right circumstances and support, can heal itself. With things like endometriosis, it's way more complicated. But hydration is a key element of that. So you will, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you will be surprised if you start to really hydrate yourself properly, just how much impact that can have on your pain levels. So pain desensitization, I didn't mean desensitization, I meant actually the opposite. So what happens when you live with a chronic condition, so when you're living with pain, you tend to feel pain more. So your body I suppose it is desensitization in a way, but your body just gets overly sensitive to pain. So if you, for example, walk through a door and bash your elbow on the door frame, ordinarily that might not might get a little bit of a tingle, or your arm might go slightly dead depending on where you hit it, but it recovers quite quickly. If you're in the throes of an endometriosis flare-up, or if you're living constantly with this chronic pain, then hitting your elbow on the door frame could cause incredible pain, because your tolerance level for pain has changed significantly because you're living with it on a day-to-day basis. So it's almost like your pain mechanism has gone into overdrive, and it can't really cope with any more overloading of it. So you can get overly sensitive to pain as well. So that's increased. So if you can think of just things that might normally ache with anybody else. So if you did a long walk maybe, and you woke up in the morning and that your legs are going to ache, even if you haven't got chronic illness, even if you haven't got endometriosis. But with endometriosis, when you're living with that chronic pain, that pain's going to be so much worse. So we also have stress and emotional trauma and upset. So I'll link them two together for now, although again, when I'm working with an individual, we do split them off, but I'll link them together for now. So again, people will know firsthand, I'm sure, how easy it is to feel stress and emotions within the body. So on the first really sort of quick way to talk about this, so many people carry stress and tension in their shoulders. So you can tell if they've had a bad day because their shoulders are hunched. A lot of the time, we carry that stress and tension just on a day-to-day basis. And again, that's exacerbated when you have endometriosis or any chronic condition, but especially things like endometriosis. So stress can really impact on our pain levels for many reasons, but for predominantly because of the fight or flight mechanisms that I've briefly touched on before, in terms of the body responding with heightened adrenaline, with muscle tension, with heightened senses. And when you've got pain, that just increases all the pain. So if you're under stress, if you're under duration, that's increasing all the pain. Same with emotional trauma. Emotional trauma causes stress. It causes emotional stress. So you've got that fight or flight mechanism. Again, heightened through your emotional capacity. Now, in my world, emotions link directly to muscles. So a lot of emotions link to big muscles in the body. So in terms of lower back, psoas muscle, which is a hugely important muscle when it comes to endometriosis, and most people have never even heard of the psoas muscle. And I won't go into too much detail because today is all about pain. But the psoas muscle and the lower back, if you've done my webinars before, you'll hear me talking about the lower back muscles and the psoas muscles all the time, because this is a real deep, or a place where deep-seated emotions are held. So we're talking about insecurities, we're talking about anxiety, we're talking about fear. All of those sit within our abdomen. So if we are constantly living in fear, if we have had a trauma where we are massively fearful, where we're feeling very vulnerable, that is all held within our abdomen. The Chinese put great emphasis on the importance of our emotions in terms of our abdomen, in terms of our bowel, our intestines as well. So if we're struggling with heightened emotions all of the time, then that is going to be showing in our bowels, which will create again, more intense pain, especially when you've got endometriosis and you've got all of those other stuff going on there as well. And then hormone imbalance. So again, as we know, endometriosis is not a hormonal. This is one misconception that I come across all the time. Endometriosis isn't a hormonal condition in that it's not caused by a hormonal imbalance. But having said that, hormone imbalances can impact on our endometriosis massively. So if we are experiencing hormonal imbalance, that will feed the endometriosis, which will cause increased pain. So there's so many different ways there you can see that we're getting this pain from the endometriosis, which is why, again, I liken endometriosis to this onion or to this Rubik's Cube. We have to look at all of this when we're talking about endometriosis. And the pain, remember, as well, as you'll know completely, is just one symptom of endo as well. So rewind, let's just take a step back. So we've looked at what endometriosis pain is. We've looked at where we have endometriosis pain, more common and less common, or less known but still common. But let's just take a step back and look at what pain actually is. So again, so I just put this. So again, this is vitally important when it comes to understanding your endometriosis, because there should be, we just kind of talk about pain, and actually there are so many different types of pain. We've talked about when pain happens with endometriosis, and that's one thing that I do ask my clients to log, is the times of day or the triggers to their pain. But also we need to look at the types of pain that we're having. So the first thing to remember, again, that I said earlier, is pain is natural. It's the body's and the mind's way of telling us that we're in danger, that there's something harming us, and that we need to look to get out of that situation. So we don't want to dismiss pain as something that we don't want. We need pain. But there are different types of pain. So I've listed two at the top there: acute pain and chronic pain. So acute pain is a pain like an injury. I mentioned injuries earlier. Acute pain is like an injury that will last for just maybe a few weeks. So anything below 6 months tends to be classed as acute pain. So that's something like a twisted ankle. So if you go over your ankle, you get a bit of bruising, you get a bit of swelling, all the things that we get with endometriosis. But the body heals it, it goes back to normal, and within less than 6 months, you're back feeling fine again, walking on your ankle with no lasting consequences. Chronic pain is when you live with it for longer than 6 months. Now, having said that, with endometriosis is slightly different, because you don't get constant, or you don't necessarily get constant pain with endometriosis. I have worked with people who are in constant pain, and I know that is a thing with endometriosis, but pain levels can fluctuate. Some people can have no pain at all for weeks, and then they have a flare-up. So you can get bouts of acute pain within endometriosis, but endometriosis is classed as chronic pain. It's classed as a chronic illness because there is no known complete cure for it at the moment. So even if you're symptom-free, even if you're pain-free for a few weeks, you're still struggling with chronic pain, because it's always likely to be there, especially if you've not got to the bottom of your endometriosis and your normal cycle is that it can clear up for a bit and then come back. So just because your endometriosis pain maybe just lasts for a few days every month, it's still not acute pain, it's still chronic pain, because it's happening over a longer period of time. So then we get into the different types of pain. So there's 3 different types of pain that I've listed here. Now these can be acute or they can be chronic. So again, with endometriosis, they tend to show up, and again, I hate saying that it isn't normally, but they most commonly tend to show up as acute. So these are kind of cyclical. They're not constant necessarily. They can be, they very much can be. So again, pop in the chat if yours is constant. But they can be cyclical as well, and that's not detracting from it. That's not to say that one's worse, one's better. They're just different. Okay, so we have the neuropathic. So basically what these pains are different ways of the pains behaving. So the pain mechanism is literally what I've said. So it's almost like you burn yourself on the hob. You have a nervous reaction. So you have the nerves within your hand that react to the flame. That sends a message up to your brain that tells your brain you're in pain. That brain then scrambles all the messages again and sends it back down to the hand to remove the hand out of the bit that's causing you pain. All that's going on without you even thinking about it. That's just a conscious conscious way. So you get different types of pain. You get a neuropathic pain, which is a nervous pain. So that can be something longer. So again, these tend to be longer term pains. Stabbing pain as well. That's really, really common with your neuropathic pain. Then you get achy pain and throbbing pain. So again, these aren't necessarily always attached. You can get the symptoms that are crossing each other. And then you get the spinal pain as well. So these are 3 different types of pain. Now, it's my experience with endometriosis that endometriosis can cause all of these 3. And sometimes people get more stabbing pain than they get achy pain, or they might get more throbbing pain than they get pain in their spine. But endometriosis can cause all 3 of these, and it can cause all 3 at the same time, or it can cause, like I say, a cyclical variation between all 3 of them. But it's really, really crucial that you understand what pain you're having and at what time and what is triggering what pain. Because then we can start to look at that cause of the pain. And yes, okay, the pain is being caused by the endometriosis, but what specifically is triggering it? And then we can start to delve deeper into that. Oops. So again, I probably should have put the slides the other way around. So pain is your body telling your mind that it's in trouble, and then your mind telling your body to respond. So when you're living with a chronic condition like endometriosis, it's a vicious cycle, because as I mentioned before, you're constantly in pain. So your body is constantly, so your body is, your abdomen, let's just take the bowel pain as an example. So your bowel has scar tissue on it, it has lesions on it, it has cysts on it, whatever is going on with your bowel, with your endometriosis on your bowel. That is constantly sending messages to your brain to tell your brain that you're in pain. So your brain is constantly scrambling around trying to get your body out of this situation that's causing it pain. That's causing more muscle tension, that's causing more stress, which is causing more pain. So it's a vicious cycle. A natural cycle, but a vicious cycle when you're living with chronic pain. Oops. Okay, so again, it gets more sensitive over time. So again, that's because that message is building up. That's because your body is becoming really, really sensitive to pain. Your body is constantly, because it's living at that heightened alert. So it's constantly on the lookout for more pain, because it's constantly thinking that you're in at significant risk of harm, because it's feeling pain, but your mind hasn't kind of grasped the fact that you can't escape from this pain. So in a normal situation, if your hand's over the flame, your brain would send the thing to your body, your hand would remove, the threat would be removed, and the body could start healing. But when you've got chronic pain within you can't as easily just whip your hand away and it's gone. So you're kind of living in this, your mind's living in this confused state that your body isn't responding. So it thinks that you're still in this traumatic state. So it has to send more stuff to the area where that pain is, which is why you're getting more and more sensitive to pain over time. And it's this fight or flight mechanism. So your body is constantly thinking it needs to fight or it needs to flight, which is why we see so much stress, so much other symptoms going on, like insomnia, because your body is just, really heightened to this pain, and it's just not relaxing because it constantly feels the need to fight or flight. So, hope all this makes sense. So we're going to stop for a quick break. What time is it? Shall we? Actually, while I'm a bit ahead, we might just crack on, if that's all right. If you do need a break, just let me know in the chat, but we'll probably crack on. What I do want to do at this point, though, is just send. So I do have that free pain. Let me just find where it is. That pain log that I told you about. So I'm just going to put that up while I'm talking. I'll leave it up for a couple of minutes. It should, hopefully, just let you, it's just part of a Google Drive, so you shouldn't have to sign in or anything. It should literally just take you to a link. Please copy the document onto your own computer, because if you don't, everyone will see your pain log if you do it on my Google Drive. So if you want your free pain log, just click that link that's on the screen, save it to your computer, save it to your Google Drive, and start to use that. But we're going to be talking, this is the crucial bit now, about how to actually come off painkillers or just reduce your reliance on painkillers and how to naturally manage your pain. And this is the first step. So let us continue. So I'm not seeing any, oh, hang on, I've taken the comments off. I'm not seeing any comments for the break, so that's perfectly fine. We shall crack on, which is perfect. So, oops, let me just, I have seen, actually, there's just been a massive drop in viewers there. So I don't know whether people have just gone for a wee. I wonder if I've not, anyway, if I haven't engaged the chat, it's too late, because I can't change it off with your webinar. So I'll crack on. Everybody gets the replay link anyway. So if people have just gone for a wee, they'll either be able to pick it up when they get back or they'll get the replay link. So let me start this. So why do we want to avoid painkillers as much as possible? So painkillers mask pain. Pain, again, as I said, pain is a natural way of our body telling ourselves to get out of a situation, and painkillers mask any pain that we're in. And I've said there, don't get mad. It's a crazy attitude towards endometriosis. So endometriosis, and again, people who've worked with me, who've seen my other webinars, people will know how angry I get at the way that endometriosis is dealt with in Western medicine. I've worked with people with many chronic conditions over the years, and there is no condition that is treated like endometriosis. As soon as you're diagnosed with endometriosis, you're hit with the message that there's no cure, there's nothing that really can be done. And the numbers, yeah, sorry. So people might come, so I think possibly people were going onto the link, which is awesome. If you've got any questions about that pain log, let me know. Where was I? So endometriosis, yes. So we're told there's no cure. We're told that pretty much this is as good as it's going to get unless you want to take hormones or have surgery, then nothing is going to get better. So we enter endometriosis with a mindset that this is going to be really painful, that this is going to hurt. And when you're in that mindset, that pain is going to be there all the time, then you're expecting pain. You're putting yourself in that fight or flight response, which everything heightens, which you're then ready to experience pain. So you're constantly looking out for pain. So that's again another reason that we become desensitized to pain. But again, I don't mean desensitized, I mean overly sensitive to pain. So it's one of the reasons that people reach for the painkillers, people with endometriosis, and I've been there myself, at the first slight hint of pain, then we reach for the painkillers because we know what it's like when we're in the grip of a flare-up and we don't want it to get that bad. And again, that's a lot to do with the mindset around endometriosis and the way that we're told that it's going to hurt. So we're entering into each flare-up with this mindset that it's not going to get any better, that it's going to be really bad. So again, I've mentioned resistance and resilience. So I've mentioned that in terms of pain in general, but in terms of painkillers, especially opiate-based painkillers can actually cause pain, which again is completely counterintuitive because we want to stop ourselves feeling the pain. But we become resilient to painkillers as well. So the more we take painkillers, the more we need to take painkillers. So the ideal is to get ourselves down to a level where we're not taking painkillers very often. So when we really do need them, you can just pop one or two and that starts to impact. Now, I would say pretty much every single person with endometriosis I've worked with, and I was like this, as I've said right at the beginning, painkillers didn't even touch my flare-up pains. And a lot of that was because I used to take painkillers all the time. So I was just becoming resilient to them. So the ideal is that we get to a point where we're not popping painkillers all the time, but when we do, that they're really, really impacting, that they're really helping us. So we want to reduce that resistance and that dependence on painkillers. And then I've said there as well, so if you want to overcome your endometriosis, which is entirely possible, then we need to retrain our body in its responses. So we need to get our body out of that fight or flight mechanism. We need to take control back of our bodies. And that's one of the first things that I work with my clients to do, and there are a few first things, as you'll notice, but one of the first things that I get my clients to do is to do a lot around mindset, about feeling more in control again of your body, feeling in control of your endometriosis. And part of that is around painkillers as well, because painkillers just add to that attitude that we're just not in control of our bodies, that our bodies can't heal ourselves, that we need this medication in order to get us through flare-ups. So here we go. How to overcome your endometriosis pain without the pills. So I've broken this down into 3 steps. So, and again, if you've seen my other webinars, I quite often break things down into 3 steps because I like 3. 3 is simple. 3 is easy to remember. So 3 steps, I'll put that back up so you can see it properly. So 3 steps. First step is to understand the pain that you're feeling, track it. And I've put log sheet there as a reminder to me. So if I'd forgotten to put the log sheet up in the break, then I would put it up now. Let me know if you want it and didn't get a chance to download it. In fact, I'll just put it up again. There we go. Oh, I can't see it. Pain log, there we go. Perfect, so that should be up there now. So yeah, the first step is to understand the pain you're feeling. So track the pain, track the type of pain you're feeling, and that's why I didn't go into a great detail in terms of, I was going to go into a massive detail in terms of the names of the different types of pain and what it all means, but actually you don't really need to know that. Just track, because I don't really use, I just look at how it feels rather than the actual pain. We will look at the actual pain when we really get down into it, but we need to know how it feels. That's the important thing. So is it a stabbing pain? Is it a pulling pain? Is it a throbbing pain? Is it an achy pain? And how much is it out of 10? So on the pain log, you'll see I've put X out of 10. Always give it a score out of 10, because that is the best way to track any improvements, any downturns, or any upturns. So always give it a number out of 10. So where is the pain you're experiencing? What sort of pain are you experiencing? What time of day is it? And then you'll see on the log, and it's not a comprehensive list on the log sheet, which is why there's room for other comments as well. So we can start to look at what's triggering it. So what did you do that day? Because it might not be, quite often it isn't what you think it is. Quite often we kind of assume it's food that's triggering endometriosis. And I think that's a belief, because yes, sugar and processed food and all those other bad things can impact our endometriosis. They can cause inflammation. They can make it worse. But it's not always the case. So it's really, really important not to assume that we know what's causing the pain, what's triggering the pain. We know the endometriosis is causing it, but not to assume that we know what's triggering it. So really, really log every day your pain, how it is, where it is, how long it lasts, whether it's stopping you sleeping, all the different things on that log sheet. Step 2, have a plan before you ditch the pills. So even though we're talking about understanding the pain, understanding the triggers for the pain, understanding what's working to help the pain, make sure that you're doing this in conjunction with a wider strategy for your endometriosis. So don't just think, right, okay, I'm starting to understand my pain now. I've done this pain log for a week. I can see that, yes, if I walk to work, not that we're walking to work much at the minute anyway, but if I go for a walk during the day, that then helps my endometriosis. So I'm going to come off the painkillers and I'm just going to walk more. Make sure that you have a wider strategy than that in place, because even though we're tracking the pain and the triggers, we don't yet know, unless you're doing the other stuff as well, what's going on with your diet, what's going on with your stress levels, what the root cause for your endometriosis is. So again, go back to people who've worked with me or seen my other webinars will know that the importance of understanding where your endometriosis has come from in the first place. Is it that genetic, historical, ancestral link? Is it stress, emotion related? Is it a physical trauma related? Is it a mixture of all 3? Before you can really, really get to the bottom of your endometriosis, you need to understand that. So before you stop taking painkillers, and really, really, especially if you're really taking painkillers a lot, make sure you have that wider strategy in place before you just stop taking painkillers. By all means, reduce them, but talk to somebody about it who knows what they're doing, who is an endometriosis expert as well, because endometriosis is different to chronic illnesses, to other chronic illnesses, I should say. So have a plan before you ditch the pills. Don't just stop ditching the pills. And then step 3, tie it into a wider strategy, which kind of links to step 2, which I've already said, and stick with it. So this is really, really important as well. If you have a wider strategy in place, so this is the importance of the wider strategy as well. If you have a wider strategy in place with somebody who knows endometriosis, who knows what's happening, then they will be able to guide you through this process, because it can be horrible. I'm not going to lie. If you're in the amount of pain that means that you're taking really, really strong painkillers a lot of the time, then coming off painkillers is and experiencing that pain and getting to the root cause of the endometriosis and addressing your endometriosis could be a long process, which is why one of my programs is 6 months, because sometimes we need 6 months to get to the crux of it and to really, really eliminate the symptoms and pain as part of the symptom, and causal as well, but part of the symptom. So that person can support you through it. Stick with it. Don't just give it a week and the pain comes back and you just then think, oh, it's not worth it, I'm just going to start taking painkillers again. Build into your strategy an acknowledgement that there will be times where it gets worse, that you may have to take painkillers as part of the steps of coming off it. So you may reduce your painkillers, but then if we're tracking things, if we know your cycle, we start to really understand what's going on with your endometriosis, then we may say, well, actually, at week 6, this is really going to hurt. So you might have to take painkillers at week 6. This isn't a failure. This is a planned strategy to manage it, if that makes sense. And stick with it. So have a plan. So this goes back to my step 2. So before you ditch the pills, plan a course of action that you're comfortable with and that you're confident you can see through. So with any plan, whenever you're doing a project, think about the long-term strategy, think about the long-term goal. And again, this is actually, one of the first things I work on with my clients. What will your endometriosis look like, or what will your life look like without endometriosis, specifically for today's webinar, without the pain? Just have that vision in your mind and work out a plan of how you're going to get to it. So identify first when you'll start. So this is why tracking is so important, because you'll start to understand your cycle. If you don't already, you'll start to understand your cycle, or your endometriosis if you're on the pill and not having a natural cycle. But you'll start to understand what your situation is for you. And you'll really start to see, even if you don't think there's a pattern to your pain, you'll start to see patterns within that pain and within that cycle. So you'll be able to identify, or you may, brackets, whatever works for you, you'll be able to see a point in your cycle where your pain is at its most manageable. Now, this could be because the pain levels dip at a certain point in your cycle. It could be because your cycle is just easier to manage. It could be a whole number of reasons why there's going to be a certain point in the next X number of weeks where it feels more manageable to start coming off the painkillers. It could even be that you're going on holiday and you want to start after you've come back. It could even be something like that. But just plan a start date so that you know definitively when you're going to start. And plan it with a reason. Don't just say, I'm going to start on Monday because it's Monday, but look at that part in your cycle, that part in your life where it's going to be more manageable to start. Pick 3 strategies you'll try. Now, really by strategies, I mean sort of treatments, I suppose, techniques. Try 3 techniques and stick with those techniques. Try one at a time. The reason for this is twofold. If you're trying different things all at the same time, then that's a lot of overwhelm going on. So you'll be picking and choosing. Things won't necessarily be settling, and you'll be getting overwhelmed with the different things you're trying. So pick 3 Pick 3 techniques. Try one at a time. Okay. That also enables you to really track the impact that one strategy, that one technique is having. So say if you pick meditation as your first, and the next slide will go through different techniques, but say you pick meditation as one of your 3, try meditating for a week as a minimum and log the impacts that you see with that technique. The more you log, the more you understand, the more you're connecting with your body, and the more you're feeling more in control as well, which again will have a massive impact on your pain level, because your body will see that you're taking that action to get yourself out of that immediate threat. So your fight or flight mechanism is reducing, which is reducing in turn, reducing your pain. And I've said there again in terms of record your results. So use that log to record the results. You need to know what's working so that you can do more of it. These techniques won't work for everybody. You will need a mixture of different techniques. But if you stick to 3 in the first instance, 1 at a time, and then again, we can move on. So with my clients, we might even end up picking 9, 10 strategies and trying all of those to see what works. And different things as well work at different parts of the cycle. And I'll explain why when we're coming on to the individual techniques. So here we go, the techniques. So these are the, how many have I put? 8. These are the 8 techniques that when I was going through my notes and my client notes in terms of prepping for today, these are the ones that seem to have the most impact. This is not a definitive list of all the techniques that are out there. There are so many different things. These are just the most common things that I see working in the time frame that I'm working with my clients. So they are in no particular order as well. I haven't put them in any particular order of efficiency or commonality or anything like that. They are just probably the order I came across them in the notes. So the first one, breath work. Sounds really daft. We breathe all the time. We normally don't give it much thought, but this is the one technique that I use all the time, that my clients seem to love. And it's one of the easiest things to do because you don't need any specific skills. You don't really need to, if you do it often enough, you don't even really need to think about it. And it can also help in every single area of your life. So I'll stop rambling. What do you do? So when we're in pain, when the fight or flight mechanism is kicking in, our breathing gets shallower. So we tend to notice that our breath is coming from the higher part of our lungs, so our chest. So the trick is when we're using breath work in terms of pain management, it's very much the same really as deep relaxation. So you want to be breathing from the bottom bit of your lungs. So when you're lying down, put a hand on your heart center, a hand sort of just underneath the bust or on the diaphragm, and it's the lower hand that should be moving up and down as you're breathing. So when you're breathing, you're making a conscious effort to bring that breath down to the abdomen. So your shoulders, my posture's dreadful today, it's this chair. Actually, I'll tell you a secret. It's a Victorian commode. So I'm actually sitting on a commode today to talk to you. It's really uncomfortable. So when you're breathing, your shoulders really shouldn't be moving that much. So it should be all coming from your stomach. So your abdomen should be where the breath is going. And now what we need to do in terms of pain management, focus on that breath and take some really, really nice, deep breaths in. So again, that area when you're in pain, that's the area that you tend to breathe from. So focus the breath on bypassing this upper chest area, sending it all to the abdomen. Now, I've adapted this, a lovely mechanism that I go through with my clients, and this is the one that I use, is to find a count that's a really, really slow, nice, slow count. It's not unnaturally slow, so it doesn't feel like you're going to pass out, but a really, really nice rhythm. The more you do it, the slower that count can come. But just get into a nice rhythm. Then you breathe in for a count of 4. So whatever rhythm you're doing, just take a few minutes to even practice it now. So get into that rhythm. And breathe in nice and deep for a count of 4. And then you hold it slightly at the top, not for very long, and then you breathe out the same rhythm, but you breathe out to a count of 8. So you can see automatically, so I've been breathing out while I've been talking, but automatically my shoulders have dropped. All that stagnant air in my abdomen has been pushed out. And bizarrely, my abdominal muscles are starting to work that little bit more as well, because you're physically pushing out the last bit of air. So you'll be able to feel all those abdominal muscles pushing the air out. So that, it's bizarre as it may sound, that's a really, really gentle, natural, nice way of massaging that abdomen. And we'll come on to abdominal massage. So, but it doesn't end there. So you breathe in for 4, you pause slightly at the top, you breathe out for 8, and then you hold that empty breath again for a count of 8. If that feels like you're going to faint, reduce that count to 4, or reduce it to 6, and then reduce it to 4 if you need to. So you're not holding your breath at the top, because in my experience, I find that puts me back in fight or flight mechanism, because that's one of the actual responses for fight or flight, is to hold your breath at the top. Everything tenses up. So my experience is that didn't serve me, and I've tried different techniques, and this is the best technique that I find with my clients. So you breathe in for 4, hold that slightly at the top, just pause rather than hold, breathe out for 8, and then hold that empty breath as well. And as you're holding that empty breath, you're just counting. So you're focusing all your attention on your counting. Then quite often what will happen is you don't even need to breathe in, because when you stop holding that breath, the body's natural response is to breathe in and fill the lungs again. So you breathe in for 4, hold, and you repeat that maybe for about 4, 8 times. Don't do it too much, because you might get a little bit lightheaded. So after you've done that breathing technique, that's when you start to just go back to a really, really slow, steady breath. So again, breathing in the abdomen, and just really, again, find a rhythm that works for you. The slower you breathe, the more you relax. Now, this is doing 2 things, and we're going to come on to the next point here as well. This is doing 2 things. In fact, it's distraction here. Again, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but in the bottom right-hand corner, I've put here distraction. This is also using that distraction mechanism. So what you're doing by doing that breath work, you are giving your abdomen a really, really gentle, natural way of massaging. You're getting those muscles to start working a little bit. So you're getting that energy, you're getting that blood, you're getting that oxygen and the hydration into the muscles in a really, the most gentle and natural way possible, just by breathing into it. You're also increasing your oxygen intake, which is taking your body out of fight or flight. So you're reducing that parasympathetic nervous response to the pain that your body is experiencing. So you're calming your body down. You're telling your mind there's nothing to worry about. You're not in danger. You can stop all the muscle tension. You can stop adding to the pain with all the cortisol, all the energy, everything that it's doing. It can stop. It can just relax. You're in control. There is nothing to worry about. You're also increasing, like I say, the oxygen intake into your bloodstream, which is helping reduce and relax muscles, which is helping naturally reduce the pain as well. The cortisol is reducing the pain itself. And you're also calming your cells on a cellular level. You're calming everything down. So if insomnia is one of your things, this is a great way to get to sleep, because it's really, really getting inside the core of your being and calming everything down. But then in terms of the counting and actually concentrating on the technique and counting, you're distracting as well. So you're distracting your body from the pain. Now that sounds ridiculous. It's like, how on earth will distracting my body, distracting my mind help with pain? A lot of the pain that we feel is as a reaction to the pain we're feeling. So we're going back to what I was saying in terms of that vicious cycle. So if you can distract your mind, convince your mind that everything's fine, and distract it from the pain, and it's the same as or similar to disruption, you take your mind off the pain. And I have to be very clear here, because one of my other peeves about endometriosis, and again, as I said at the beginning, I've been there, it's being told it's all in your mind. Endometriosis is 100% not in all your mind, not all in your mind. It's very, very real. The slight caveat to that is that a lot of the pain we are feeling can be controlled by our minds, by relaxing our minds and interrupting, and this is where we're going to come to disruption, interrupting that thought process. So you can distract from it, which is the distraction. We'll move on to that right at the, I'll talk about it now. So the other ways of distracting your body. So you've got the counting. So through the breathing, you've got the counting. You can also, it sounds a bit daft, you can also read a book, listen to music, listen to a podcast. Now, one of the things that's really, really difficult when we're in chronic pain is to do this distraction technique, because you are consumed by the pain, and it's so difficult. And again, I've been there, I get it. It's so difficult to distract yourself, especially with things like reading, because all you can think about is the pain. You're in pain. I can't sit down and read a book. I'm in pain. All I want to do is take a painkiller and sleep. And all you can think about is what you can't do and the pain that you're feeling. So again, all of these takes practice and takes time. But the more you practice, the better at it you get. So now if you pick one technique to distract yourself with. So if you like reading, if you like watching films, if you like listening to a podcast, pick one of those things and really focus on it until it's distracting you. So really, really focus on reading your book. Don't give up. Keep immersing yourself in that book, and it will get easier. And you'll find after there'll be 15 minutes, it takes about 12 minutes for the parasympathetic nervous system to really kick in. So if you're really focusing on something for over, say, 15 minutes, then you will be distracting yourself from the pain, but you will also be disrupting those pain mechanisms as well. Because again, these principles are all the same. It's convincing your body that there's nothing wrong. It's telling your mind, I'm in control. I'm not an immediate threat. This pain is part of my endometriosis. I get it. I can deal with it. Back off is basically what you're saying to your response system. That's a little bit about distraction, that bottom right one as well. So disruption is very, very similar, but it's a little bit more forced. So when you're disrupting that pain, this is something to do if you really struggle with distraction. Disruption is like distraction on steroids. So the easiest thing that I've taught my clients to do with this is to use a bag of frozen peas because it's horrible. So literally what you do, and it's not about putting it on the area where the pain is, you distract your mind from the pain. So if your pain is in your lower back, say, get some frozen peas and stick it on your arm or stick it on your shoulder or on the back of your neck. And what will happen is your body thinks, it sends all your focus, all your attention, all your adrenaline, all your cortisol, everything goes to that area, and you're distracting it from your stomach pain. This is not a long-term strategy because in effect what you're doing is putting your body into fight or flight, which eventually will make the pain worse. But just as an initial sharp shock distraction technique, that works really, really well. And it sounds daft, but try it. It's absolutely brilliant. It's the same technique as when you've got a kid at the dentist or the doctor's. My mum used to do this to me because I used to get so scared at the dentist. So she used to distract me with quick things, and it just takes your attention away for a moment but breaks the cycle. So then you break the cycle, and after that break, after that initial, that's when you start to do your breathing or your meditation or something else. But it's just that quick break in that cycle. So, okay, movement is the next one. So again, when we're in a flare up, when we're struggling with pain, the last thing often we want to do is move. And I talk a lot about walking. Walking is a great way of helping endometriosis in general, but in terms of pain as well. Because again, similar to the breathing, when we're walking, it's our body's natural way of peristalsis, of kickstarting peristalsis in the gut. And that is basically, it's massaging the gut just by walking. However, sometimes we just can't face walking, especially if you're feeling so fatigued as well. You don't want to be outside, you just want to be in your safe space. So either, so a lot of the techniques that I use are all around very, very gentle movement. So Qigong, if you've heard of Qigong's a fantastic, really gentle way of moving. Even if you've not heard of Qigong, a really nice thing to do, if you're lying in bed, a really nice thing to do is just to twist very, very gently. Twist your hips and twist. So one of the massage techniques I use on my clients is a lovely Chinese massage called tweener, and it's basically just rocking the body. And you can do that yourself. So again, it's even better when you do it with the breathing, but just by rocking the body. And you'll start, if you're standing up, you can start to swing your arms, and you'll just notice how naturally it's like hanging a shirt. Don't know where that's come from, but it's like hanging a shirt. When you hang a shirt, the creases sort of fall out naturally, a lot of them. It's the same. When you're sort of very, very gently moving, you'll find that the pain and the muscle tension just relaxes away. So something that I often one of the techniques that I often start with is just to really, really gently just tense the abdominal muscles up and relax them. Really, really slowly. If you feel pain, then just stop, wait for that pain to pass. Again, breathe through it. So this is where you can sort of bring your different techniques in. Breathe through the pain and just keep on tensing. So the more you just really, really gently just tense those abdominal muscles up. And you can do this with guided meditation as well. And then once they're as tense as they can be, again, just hold it, keep breathing. Don't stop breathing when you're tensing your muscles. That's one of our natural responses, but be very, very mindful to keep the breath work going. Keep those muscles tense, and then just really, really, really gently again, relax them. Keep the breath work coming. So that's a really simple way of building in movement when you don't feel you can physically walk or physically do Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga even. If you feel you're not up to that, then just concentrate on the individual muscles, the individual areas, and getting that movement into your abdomen. Abdominal massage, again, is a really, really nice way of relaxing your stomach muscles. More than that, so the Chinese Amno Fu abdominal massage, you'll have heard me talk about it. There's different variants as well. There's a Mayan one. There's different variants of an abdominal massage. But if you start doing this on yourself, it is simple enough. I do prefer to talk people through how to do it because there's symptoms and things that you need to look at while you're doing it. But I can quite simply teach you how to do that on yourself, and it's a lovely, lovely treatment. What it does, from a physical point of view, it breaks down all the toxins that are in your gut. So if you struggle with bloating, and I know we're talking about pain today, but if you struggle with bloating, if you struggle with gut pain, then this is a really, really nice way of breaking down the toxins that are in the gut or the abdomen as well, but I'll come on to that. And resetting that gut. It also massages, obviously, massages the muscles as well. So you're getting the same benefit as you would from a sports massage or from a lovely aromatherapy massage. And you can build, we'll talk about essential oils, but you can build essential oils into that abdominal massage as well at the same time. So that's a really, really nice technique. With endometriosis, it has the added benefit of starting to break down that scar tissue as well. So especially if you build essential oils into it, you're increasing the blood flow to the area, as with any sport, as with any massage. So you're accelerating your body's own ability to heal itself, but then you're also breaking down scar tissue as well. So you're breaking down scar tissue, you're flushing through the toxins, and you're accelerating your self-healing techniques, your body's ability to heal itself as well. That's a beautiful way of getting rid of any pain. And again, the subcontext is that it's a distraction. It's a disruption and a distraction because you're giving yourself something else to focus on, and you're giving your body something else. Your mind starts thinking, oh, what's going on here? And it's focusing its energy on the massage. So you're disrupting and you're distracting again. So meditation, we've already briefly spoken about meditation. So meditation is a really, really good way of managing pain because, again, it distracts us, it disrupts us, it lowers all the stress, it lowers the cortisol. Everything is around getting our body to be relaxed as possible because pain doesn't exist where everything's relaxed. A bit of a sweeping statement, not entirely true, but pain is not exacerbated when the body's relaxed, if that makes sense. The more relaxed we are as well, the easier we find it to relax. So the more we practice this, so remember I said in terms of getting a time to start when your pain is going to be more manageable. You might think it's a bit daft to start when you're feeling okay, but the more practice you do, the more practice you get when you're feeling okay, when you haven't got heightened pain, means that your response mechanisms, you're training your brain to respond a certain way. So for example, using sound as an example, I quite often, when I was doing Reiki treatments, when I do self-treatments, I always start my practice with a gong sound. So now That gong sound is a trigger, because triggers can be positive as well as negative. That gong sound is now a trigger. My body knows when it hears that gong that I can just relax because it's time to relax. So the more of these you do, the more they become triggers, the more your body gets used to responding in a certain way. So the more practice you get when you're feeling good, the better your body will respond when you're in a flare-up, when you're in the grips of all that pain. That's not to say you can't start when you're in pain, because it's better to start today than it is tomorrow. So if you're in pain today and you want to try and start today, that's absolutely fine. But it's always better to pick a time when you think it'll be easier for your body to recognize the benefits or experience the benefits. So meditation calms our brain, it calms our parasympathetic, I cannot say that this morning, calms our body's parasympathetic nervous system, so it reduces all the stress hormones, it relaxes our body, and it distracts our brain. So if you're new to meditation, trying to clear, so the point of meditation, people think it is to have an empty mind, and to some extent it is, but when you're starting meditation, the point of meditation is to relax your mind. So if you're starting out with meditation, don't jump straight into a listen to nothing, clear your mind, sit in silence in the Om position for 30 minutes, because that will cause more stress, because you will have thoughts coming into your mind, you won't be able to empty your mind, and you'll just get more and more stressed. So I always advise my clients, and I do guided meditations for my clients, but I always advise my clients to start with guided meditations, and you can get some fantastic guided meditations for pain. Again, I'd say take your time with this. If you do one or two that don't work, don't give up, because I find quite often it can be the music they're using, or it can even be the person's voice as well. If that person's voice is grating on me, then I don't relax as much as I do if it's somebody whose voice I find is soothing. So stick with it if you can. So the guided meditation that I do, well, I do a few, but the one that I tend to use first is about you start at your feet. And you tense up your feet, then you relax your feet, you tense up your legs, you relax your legs, you tense up your bum. This is a simplified version. You tense up your back, you tense up your arms, you tense up your face, and then everything relaxes. That sort of meditation is fantastic for pain management, because you're breathing deeply. So you're getting the relaxation that we know that you get from the breath work. You're getting the movement in the muscles, albeit slight. You're getting that that tension and relaxing. So you're getting that movement in. You're getting your distraction, and you're getting your disruption as well. So meditation is a really, really good place to start, but only if you're in a place where you can not get frustrated by it, because if you start to get frustrated by it, you start to get stressed by it, then it's having the opposite effect. Essential oils. Now, for those of you who heard me talk about essential oils before, again, it's a very, very personal thing. So I don't tend to give a lot of recommendations in terms of essential oils, because obviously the most obvious essential oil is lavender. Lavender is a fantastic essential oil. It's great for general relaxation. If you're building it into your massages, then it has other properties as well. It's anti-inflammatory, it's it's the word I'm looking for, can't think of the word, but it helps healing, it promotes healing of cells, of cuts, of everything. It's a fantastic, lovely essential oil. However, some people absolutely hate it because it reminds them of whatever, or they just don't like the smell. So if you don't like the smell of lavender, then it's never going to be relaxing for you, because you're just constantly going to be thinking, oh, I don't like the smell of lavender. So it's my dog's going bonkers. I think the postman must be here, so apologies for that. I don't know if you can hear because I'm on my little microphone today. So yeah, if you don't like the smell of lavender, it's not a good choice for you. So don't go with it if you don't like it. I swear by things like sandalwood and frankincense. I like that woody, earthy smell, but it's very, very much trial and error. And again, this is why it's so important to understand your endometriosis, because if you struggle with inflammation, well, most of us do, but if you struggle with bloating, if you struggle with pain more than bloating, if we determine if you've had an operation or an injury and that's a major factor in it, then the essential oils that you pick may differ, and it may differ slightly from the parts of your cycle as well. So have a play with it. I would say to start with lavender. So I mentioned in terms of massage. So if you're trying the abdominal massage, you can so with the massage, I'd always use a bit of oil. just to stop the friction on the skin. So you can use coconut oil, hemp oil is really nice as well, and just pop a couple of drops of essential oil into that carrier oil. So you can start with lavender on the massage. You can also use it in a diffuser. My diffuser seems to have disappeared. But you can use it in diffusers, or you can pop a couple of, some essential oils say not to put directly onto the skin. So always check, always do a bit of a trial if you want to wear it as a perfume. Dilute it a little bit into an oil before you pop it on your skin, or you can get lava bracelets as well, that you just pop a couple of bits on the black lava beads, or they can be white as well, actually any colour, but on the lava beads, and then they just kind of emit the scent during the day. Or in the home, you can, like I say, put a diffuser or pop a couple of drops on cotton buds and just leave them on cotton wool balls and just leave them around the house as well. So they're really, really nice ways. If you find something that's really, really nice, you can put it throughout your house. And it just helps with the relaxation. You could do that as well as your other things as well, because it's just dead simple. It's actually quite a nice thing to do anyway, just to have natural scents around the house. Oops, so how do I get back? There we go. So the only other one we've not talked about is sleep. And I've put that little cat there as well, because quite often, if you have pets and things, anything that you can find that relaxes you, build that into your life. I hate the term self-care, because self-care shouldn't even be a thing. It should be how we live our lives anyway. We should prioritise our health and our well-being enough that self-care is just how we live. So take time out, if you've got animals, take time out to spend some time and connect with the animals as well. That's a really nice distraction, disruption, calming thing to do. But sleep is the actual thing I wanted to talk about. So sleep is one of those things that's really, really weird when it comes to chronic illness, because we really need sleep in terms of our body regenerating, in terms of healing ourselves. Now, when we have, especially endometriosis, this is so essential to us, because we need our body to be hydrated, and we need that downtime for the body to do what it does best, which is repair itself in our sleep. So our sleep is all about the regeneration and the relaxation of body and mind and soul as well. So we need sleep. However, when we're struggling with chronic pain, sleep is one of the first things that gets disrupted, which it's just a major flaw in how we're all designed, I think. But yeah, when we're struggling with pain, especially if it's a hormonal element to your endometriosis as well, because that pain could be coupled with hot flashes, all sorts of things could be going on. So your sleep quite often can be disrupted. And again, it's so important to understand when, to understand, or to begin to understand why. So the pain log mentions sleep, because it's really, really important to get that correlation going between pain and your personal sleep patterns. And your sleep could be disrupted because of pain. It could be disrupted because of your diet. It could be disrupted because of a whole host of other things. It could be causing the other things, but it's so important to track it. We need good sleep. So I've actually done a sleep thing as well. I didn't think to put the link here, but if you want, I can't remember, I think it's a PDF, but if you want my PDF in terms of how to get good sleep, then give me a shout. Now it isn't necessarily linked to endometriosis. It does talk about pain, but it's not linked to endometriosis. So in terms of good sleep, the key pointers I'd give today are to get into a good bedtime routine. Now, that's not to say that it has to be going to bed at the same time every night, because sometimes that just isn't possible. But get yourself into a good routine that you do every night. So no matter what time you're going to bed, you're doing the same things before you go to bed. So again, it's like a ritual. It's like I go back to the gong sound. My body knows when I'm doing the gong, it's time for relaxing. So in bedtime routine, your body prepares itself for sleep up to 2 hours before you actually go to bed. So use those 2 hours to form some sort of ritual. Turn your phone off, have a hot milky drink, not if milk's one of your triggers. Have a glass of water. Have downtime where you turn the TV off and read the book. Take the dog out for a walk. Cuddle the dog. Just get into a nice, relaxing routine. Do your breath work. Do your journaling if you journal. Do your pain log. Get into that habit that you're doing the same thing every night, so your body is preparing for sleep. And then even if you do shift work, or if you can't guarantee that you're going to be going to bed at the same time, the habits will tell your body that you're about to sleep and that it should be getting ready for sleep time. In terms of when you've got endometriosis, this is when it's a really, really good time to be doing at least one of these things. I would say the breath work. So the closer you get to bedtime, breath work, essential oils are great as well. So get into the habit of, I didn't write crystals down, but crystals are a really, really good way, again, ritualistic kind of way. Put a crystal, slip a crystal under your pillow before you go to sleep. Spritz a little bit of essential oil mixed with filtered water onto your pillow. See it as a ritual. So it's beneficial in itself. So lavender, for example, lavender and rose is a really nice combination to get to help with sleep. So it's got beneficial effects itself, but just the ritual, your body starts calming, your mind starts calming, your pain starts easing just by doing that. And then get into bed and do 15 minutes of your breath work. So that could, your bedtime ritual could be something that simple. It could be a 20-minute ritual. People say about having baths before bed. Oh, I've just realised I've turned the chat, just in case there are any chat messages. Perfect. People talk about having a bath before bed. So essential oils are fantastic to put in your bath. Epsom salts are really, really good in terms of magnesium, putting magnesium back into your system. If you want to have a bath before bed, I always say to give it at least half an hour between your bath and going to bed, because if you're having a warm bath, that's raising your blood pressure. So what you want to be able to do is just give yourself some time after that bath just to bring everything back down, just to relax everything back down before you're ready for bed. And make sure as well that if you're getting out of the bath, your bathroom isn't cold, because then all of that lovely warmth that you've got in the bath will disappear. That's quick sideline. So anything you can do to help yourself sleep. For clients whose mind races, which again with endometriosis is such a common thing, brain fog is really common with endometriosis. I know we're just talking about sleep today, pain today. Brain fog is really common with endometriosis, and this busy mind is really common with endometriosis as well. So if my client has a busy mind, I always suggest keeping a pen and paper by the bed. Not your mobile phone, a pen and paper by the bed. So if you wake up at 2 a.m. with something on your mind, write it down. Even if you think it's not important, or even if it isn't important, even if you think you'll remember in the morning, write it down, because it gets it out of your mind and onto paper. Keep a bottle of water by the bed as well. I said a bottle, so I mean a glass bottle. Try not to use plastic bottles if you can. So again, chances are you won't need it, but just knowing it's there can, again, our minds are strange things, but that can really have a calming impact on people's sleep patterns just by having some water by the bed. So try and get some really good sleep, because that is essential to pain as well. If pain is stopping you sleeping, then use some of the distraction techniques, the breathing techniques, the meditation techniques as part of your pre-sleep ritual, so that you're bringing your body down and giving it the best chance of sleep. There's also natural things you can do to help yourself sleep as well, things like chamomile tea. So if you had a cup of chamomile tea maybe an hour or so before bed, things like that can also help as well. So they are the main, just put them back up again, they are the main 8 techniques of how you can overcome your pain without popping pills. Now let me just go back to these. Tie it into a wider strategy with your endometriosis. So don't forget, I think I've actually put, there we go. So I remember going back, there we go. So 3 key don'ts. So this is what not to do. So if you want to see longer lasting results, if you are determined that you want to cut down or even stop taking painkillers for your endometriosis, these are 3 things not to do. So don't skip steps 1 and 2. So if we go back to, so step 1, understand the pain you're feeling. Get to know your pain, get to know it in relation to your endometriosis. Check it, log it, and understand it, and have that wider plan in place before you ditch the pills. So don't just stop taking the pills. Make up that plan of how you're going to do it. Don't skip those steps. So it takes time to be able to get your body to respond to pain differently. It's retraining. Don't forget, we're retraining our bodies here. These are coping techniques that we've set up over a long period of time because of the endometriosis. These are things that are going to take a long time, and not a long time. I don't want you to think that just because you've had endometriosis for 10 years, it's going to take 10 years to be able to overcome it. It doesn't work like that. Even it doesn't work like that with the pain either. But it does take some time, and it does take some energy. So don't skip steps 1 and 2. It might seem that they're unnecessary steps, but actually that's the fundamental building block of actually becoming pain-free. And also don't step stage 3, because you do need that wider strategy, because until you get rid of your endometriosis, you're not going to be able to get rid of your pain completely. So you do need that wider strategy in terms of addressing your endometriosis as well. So don't expect instant results. This goes back to what I was saying about it taking time. Your endometriosis has been with you for years. Your pain response has been developing for all of that time. So we need to reverse that. We need to reverse that muscle memory. We need to reverse that automatic response that your body has developed. We need to reverse it. And it doesn't take as long to undo it as it did to set it up, but it just does take some time. So don't just give it a week. 90 days. I read somewhere once that any strategy takes 90 days to implement it properly. So give it some time. Try something for a couple of weeks. If it's really not working, then try something else, but log everything. Because quite often, as well, I see with my clients, and this is when I mentioned before about marking things out of 10, this is why that aspect is so important, because quite often I'll be working with clients and they'll be saying, oh, I've tried that, but it's not really helped. How long have you tried it for? The answer comes back either 2 days. It's like, right, okay, we'll give it another 10 days and see how it helps, or 2 weeks and it's not helped. And then we go back to the log sheet and actually we see that it was maybe a 9 out of 10 to begin with, and it's dropped to maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10. So yeah, it's not gone to 0 out of 10. It's not even gone to 2 or 3 out of 10, but there has been a marked difference. Sometimes we don't recognize it because we are naturally really, really bad at recognizing when things are getting better for our own health. This is why logging it is so, so important, because we log the symptoms, we log the impact, we log the score out of 10. So it's dead simple to see when we're seeing improvements. So that's the other thing as well, just popped into my mind, that's why I got distracted. When you're marking it out of 10, have a very, very clear marking strategy in your mind so that it's consistent, so that you can definitely see any changes. And also we want to see if things are going up as well. So something like I was saying about some things working at some points of the cycle, some things not. So your abdominal massage, this abdominal massage at the beginning of the wider strategy, the abdominal massage might work around ovulation, say, but might make things worse, menstruation, or the other way around. There might be certain times in the cycle where something works and doesn't. So it's really important to track when you're doing a technique that brings something down from an 8 to a 4, say, at certain times of the month, or in conjunction with certain other triggers, but then at certain other times of the month it takes it up to a 9 because it's just not working. So again, it's really, really important to look at the things that make it worse as well as the things that make it better. And don't struggle through it yourself. So this is what I was saying before in terms of how lucky I was that I had that person to guide me, and I want to be that person for everybody else that's struggling with endometriosis, but there's other people out there like me who, the one thing I would say is please try and find somebody who has experience with endometriosis, who is a true endometriosis specialist. There's lots of people who say they can help with endometriosis, and I don't want to detract from what they do. Many of them, the ones that I've come across, are very, very skilled healers, they're skilled therapists, but unless they really understand endometriosis, they might not be able to help to the level you need. Endometriosis is so complex. So don't struggle through it yourself, and make sure whatever support you're getting is qualified. And I don't necessarily mean with a piece of paper. I just mean that they have the experience, that they know what they're going through, that they can really advise you on what's going on. But you've got a much better chance of succeeding with this if you find somebody to support you. And that could just be somebody who can get offer that emotional support. They don't even need to be able to talk you through how to do abdominal breathing or the abdominal massage or anything like that. It could just be that support that you need just to talk about stuff, because quite often we get so much dismissal. Is that the right way of wording it? No, we get dismissed so much when we're struggling to get our diagnosis, and then even after the diagnosis with our symptoms and things, sometimes it's nice just to have somebody there to listen and support you. So if that's all you need, then try and find that consistent support. So I've given you quite a lot of information there. So where do you start with it all? So these are the 4, again, not in any specific order. So find your mentor, find that person that you can trust, who knows endometriosis and who understands you, stroke endometriosis, stroke what you're going through, but find that person that you can talk to that can offer you the advice and the support that you need. Again, it's very, very personal. Some people need a lot of support. Some people need intense support. Other people just need a sounding board. So find what you need and find that in somebody that you can trust. Track everything. So make sure you're using your pain log or whatever it is that you want to use. Personally, I don't use that pain log, even though I've set it up. I use a diary, I use a journal, and I track things. I'd be lying if I said every single day, because some days I do forget. But track everything. The only way we can overcome pain, the only way we can overcome our endometriosis is to really understand what's going on that's unique to our body. So track everything daily if you can. Connect to your body. So again, this happens naturally when we're tracking everything, but I've put it in there just so you're conscious that that's what's happening. So when you're tracking things, you're actually being conscious of what's going on inside your body. You're getting to know your body, you're getting to know your endometriosis. And when I said right at the beginning, in terms of my relationship with my endometriosis is very love-hate relationship, this is kind of what I'm talking about, because endometriosis is a part of me. It's kind of shaped my life for the better. I didn't think it was going to at one point. I thought it was going to be completely the other way. But through connecting to my body, connecting to my endometriosis, that's really helped me. It's helped me understand my body and understand how to overcome my endometriosis. So get to know how it feels. Track everything. In tracking it, you're connecting and you're really starting to have that relationship with your body. In tracking it and connecting it, especially when you start to heal it. So we're talking about pain today, Sarah, keep focusing on pain. So when we're talking about the pain, you'll start to see what works with your body. So for example, say the aromatherapy massage, whatever works, whatever you start noticing works for you, that's giving your body love as well, because every day you're writing down how much better you feel. And the importance of that when it comes to pain and endometriosis in general, but pain today, cannot be understated. That positive mindset, that distraction of our mind from our pain is so important. So if we're tracking down things that are working, other symptoms, we're just distracting our mind as well as connecting. And vision. I said earlier, just in terms of getting my clients to visualize how life without endometriosis and without endometriosis pain would look like. So the way I do this, I have a Pinterest board on my phone. And I look at that a lot because that keeps me focused about how my life is and will be without the constraints of the endometriosis. So do the same, either have a Pinterest board, have a physical, if you're good at crafts and things like that, get a physical board, have a cutout, even just words, just the art of writing down words that you would like to achieve, how your life would look without this pain, without your endometriosis. But today is all about pain and managing that pain. So what would you be able to do if you weren't in pain anymore? How would your life look without the endometriosis pain that you're struggling with? Get that all down as a vision and keep that vision in your mind, because it's the same as any other target, it's the same as any other goal. Once you have that vision, once you have that thing to aim for, everything else seems worth it. So if you go through, if things feel like they're going really well, and then you take a downturn and you have to take painkillers, or you have to, I don't know, do something else that's not in your plan. If you keep track of that bigger vision, then that means you're more likely to get back on track. So using diet, again, I'm talking about wider things, wider endometriosis stuff, but if you have a bad weekend of diet and you feel your bloating coming back, or even your pain coming back, it's quite easy to sit and say, oh, well, I've messed up here, just forget about it. I'm just going to go back to all my old ways. But if you have that vision board, just a quick look at the fridge or the toilet door or on your phone, wherever that vision is, will just remind you of the importance of what you're doing. And 2 days, 2 bad days, 2 bad weeks is fine if you break the cycle. Remember the vision that you're striving for and start working at it again, because it's better to do that than just to give up completely. Okay, so We have 10 minutes left for any questions. So if there are any questions, please let me know. I'm just going to pop up the link to the pain thing again, and if it will let me, I do have... I'm not very good at this. There we go. So that's up there. And I also have, it'll let me do two at the same time. It's my birthday month this month, May. Woohoo! So I will be 44. So to celebrate my birthday, I am trying to help 44 people who I have either never helped before or who are previous clients who I haven't seen for a long time. So if you want to book in a free session with me, that should be on the screen as well. So in these free consultations, we just talk through your symptoms, your endometriosis. I give all the advice I can actually on the call in terms of immediate stuff you can do. And then we also look to see if you want to work with me longer term. I can always give you advice in terms of finding other therapists as well. So if you're not local to me or if you'd rather work with somebody else, that's absolutely fine. I can give you advice in terms of finding somebody else who can help as well. But I'll give you all the help I can on that call. So if you do want to book in, please feel free. I'll just put it back on the chats. Are there any other questions coming through? Nope, can't see any. Oh, here's one. Hi, Nicole. Is the webinar recorded? Yes, yes, absolutely. So you will get, everybody who's on today will get a replay link, and anybody who's missed it will get a replay link. So you can watch however much of that you need to. And I'm not certain if the chat, I don't think the chat should, to be honest, there hasn't been much on the chat today. But I don't know if you will see the chat. But if you have any questions on the replay, you can pop your question in the chat box and it'll come through to me as an email as well. But yeah, you get a link. You get a link to the replay. I think that replay is available for 7 days, but I'll double check that because ideally I want it to be a bit longer than that. But if you missed it and you've missed, I don't know why I'm saying this, because if you've missed the replay, then you're not going to hear me saying it. So I'll pop something in the email if it is just 7 days. But yeah, so yeah, I hope that was useful. I hope you've got some strategies out of that you're very welcome. Yeah, glad it helped. Yeah, if there's any questions you have, then feel free to ask me on email as well. I'm very aware that when we talk about our own health, it's very, very difficult to put stuff in chat boxes and things and talk about it publicly. So I'm always available on email. Obviously, if we're getting into the realms of advice and things, then I would need to do a bit of a consultation with you, but I'm always here for generic advice. If you do want a free session, book yourself in. If you do want to download that free pain log, like I said, I don't think there's any requirements to sign up to anything on there. So just go in and download that as well. And feel free to share it if you want to share it. I'm not precious about these things. There's plenty of information available out there for free, so I don't mind being out there for free as well. So yes, thank you very much for giving up your time on this beautiful May Day. For those of you who've watched live, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the replay if you're watching on replay. Any questions, give me a shout. Enjoy the rest of what is in the UK a fantastic bank holiday weekend. I hope the weather stays lovely for you. Just as I'm talking, it's just going cloudy here in Lancashire, a great big grey cloud. So wherever you are, I hope you're going to be faring better than we had a massive thunder and hailstorm yesterday. So as long as we don't get that, I'll be happy. So take care, have a fantastic weekend. Any questions, give me a shout. I look forward to supporting you all at some point in the future. Thank you very much, guys.